Coming up next, I know you're going to dig this. We have our Bottle Lightning show where we talk about the greatest one-hit wonders ever. But today, I want to do something a little different. I want to shake it up. I was thinking about, what about those artists who actually followed up their huge hit with another one of equal impact? You know, a second legitimate hit, but then never had another one. Talking about the two-hit wonder. It's a special countdown today of the top 5 two-hit wonders of the 1980s. We're talking about Tales featuring a comedy legend in drag, a group who took their obsession with a radio DJ to a deadly level, an artist nicknamed The Ant, a civil lawsuit with a legendary guitarist in the plaintiff seat, and one band who had a 50-second cameo in an 80s movie that will shock many of you. You'll be like, what? Get ready for some serious fun and nostalgia on our top 5 two-hit wonders of the 80s coming up next. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember playing with spirographs, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the red button and click the notification bell so you know when our latest and greatest come out. We have some amazing interviews coming out, a couple of top secret ones. Stay tuned for those details. Also, check us out on Patreon and our merch below. So it's time for another episode of our show, Bottle Lightning. We celebrate a song that was king for a day or for many days. But today, instead of celebrating a one-hit wonder, we're going to celebrate the greatest artist to score a deuce, right? Score a second hit in our Professor of Rock countdown of the top 5 two-hit wonders of the 80s. So we kick it off in style with a band that kicked some serious trash for a couple of years in the latter part of the decade. It's the Danish-American rock band White Lion coming in at number 5. Now, White Lion was a 4-piece fronted by Mike Tramp from Denmark, James Lomenzo on bass, Greg D'Angelo on drums, and an outstanding guitarist from Staten Island, New York named Vito Bratta. Now, Mike and Vito wrote most of the music for White Lion, including their breakthrough hit Wait from the band's second studio album, Pride. White Lion secured a deal with Atlantic after they managed to get record executive Jason Flom so drunk that he agreed to sign them. Once they were signed, though, Flom didn't use the excuse of being drunk to back out. Instead, his inebriated decision paid off big time as White Lion went on to deliver a platinum record on their debut. While recording the drums for the Pride sessions, Vito played the solo to the song Wait as a backing track. The producer, Michael Wagoner, he was so impressed that they decided to keep that recording. Michael said that he got goosebumps hearing Vito play that solo. They also borrowed an older Fender Stratocaster that once belonged to Jimi Hendrix to record another solo on the album. Now, in an interview, White Lion drummer Greg D'Angelo shared that the initial demo songs had the same raw sound as their first record. However, they decided to take a chance on recording and releasing the album with a new, slightly more commercial sound that resulted in the band achieving platinum status, selling over 1 million copies. They decided to do that. On the recorded version of Wait, Vito showcased just some sensational fretwork on the solo. I mean, he was drawing comparisons from the music press to Eddie Van Halen. Like Eddie, Vito's sound was pretty much impossible to replicate, but that didn't stop young guitarists from giving it a shot. His playing set White Lion apart from other hair metal bands at the time like Poison and Motley Crue and Kix. I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying hair metal, glam metal, however you want to say it. I don't mean to offend anybody. But a little known fact, in 1986, White Lion was hired by hotshot director Steven Spielberg, the hottest director of the 80s, to play a fictional band in the film The Money Pit starring Tom Hanks and Shelley Long. The band appears in the movie for just under a minute, mostly in the background while Tom Hanks' character tries to get the band's manager to sign a legal document entitling them to some money.
I got some papers. The band has to sign these. What is?
The soundtrack includes the song Web of Desire, credited to White Lion and Roby, portrayed by Luis Roby, which was demoed that year. Although the film's soundtrack was never officially released, the song is featured in both of the band's scenes in the movie.
Because I like you better than I like them. But they're your sister and your brothers.
But back to the song Wait. I mean, who didn't love Wait when it came out? It's just one of those pump you up songs that of the 80s, just one of those anthems. So if you And it climbed to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. It surprisingly only reached, I think it was number 18 on the mainstream rock chart, which is surprising. But White Lion then scored their second top 40 hit with another power ballad. But this one's a little slower, When the Children Cry.
The children cry, let them know.
Third single released off the Pride album in 88. Mike Tramp co-wrote this song with Vito Bratta in 1985 during a time when Africa was suffering from a devastating famine. The same year as We Are the World. In contrast, America was experiencing relative peace and prosperity at that time. Despite this, Tramp's lyrics are quite somber, reflecting concern for children growing up in a world fraught with war and evil. Sounds familiar. Mike explained the mood that surrounded them when they wrote the song. He said, and I quote, "At that time, the general mood in America was one of enjoyment and good times. Yet here I am singing lines like, when the children cry, let them know that we tried. One united world under God and no more presidents and all the wars will end." It clearly wasn't reflective of the current moment. Maybe I was a bit of a Nostradamus back then, sensing that things wouldn't always be this way. And actually, When the Children Cry, it surpassed Wait, rising to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and actually went to number 7 on the mainstream rock charts. After White Lion disbanded in 1992, Vito Bratta largely disappeared from the public eye. I understand he was taking care of his ailing father, and he also suffered a wrist injury that affected his playing. Tensions arose between him and Mike Tramp when Mike began using the White Lion name for various projects. Although they never reunited, they eventually established a pretty cordial business relationship. Would love to see those guys tour again. Okay, coming in at the number 4 spot on our countdown of the top 5 two-hit wonders of the 80s, we got Australia's celebrated band Icehouse with their 2 hits Electric Blue and Crazy. Now, singer Ira Davies went from being a part-time janitor to forming a band and eventually getting signed by Sydney-based indie label Regular Records. This was in the late 70s. They're actually named Flowers with their first album called Icehouse. Then they decided to make the album name their band name because it was so popular. And they were Icehouse, that we know and love. Icehouse was huge in Australia and New Zealand. They actually had 11 top 40 hits between 1980 and 1986. But other than a scattering of commercial play, success eluded them in the States. That, of course, all changed in 87 with the release of their 5th album, Man of Colors, featuring their breakthrough American hit, Crazy.
I've got a pocket.
Icehouse was a sextet with Ira Davies on lead vocals, Robert Kretschmer on lead guitar, Stephen Morgan on bass, Simon Lloyd on keyboards and brass, Andy Quinta on piano and backing vocals, and Paul Wheeler on computers and percussion. That's what it said in the liner notes. Their first massive hit was inspired by a DJ named Garver, who has a nightly show broadcasting from a studio in California. And this DJ often incorporated poetry into his program, and this in effect attracted a psychotic listener named Evelyn. Garver meets Evelyn at a bar, they have a little fling, and but then he cuts it loose after he finds out that she's the woman that calls him every night on the request line begging him to play a certain song for her. Very creepy. Of course, everyone has heard the expression, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. When the DJ rejects Evelyn, she freaks out and his life becomes a living hell. The fan's obsession turns deadly. She starts stalking him, vandalizing his home, attacking his housekeeper. She tries to kill him and his girlfriend. Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, the plot of this comes from the Clint Eastwood classic film, Play Misty for Me.
Play Misty for me.
Get off my back!
Play Misty for me.
Which apparently was loosely based on a true story. Now, more than 50 years later, the creepiness of this movie, it still holds up. And, the terror is all too real these days because of social media.
You ever find yourself being completely smothered by somebody?
The band decided to build a storyline around the theme of Play Misty for Me for the music video of Crazy.
Can you play Crazy for me?
And the music video, Iva rocking an impressively stylish mullet, I might add. He plays an on-air personality like Dave Garver, and he gets a call from an obsessed female listener who asks, "Do you mind if I wake you tonight?" Now, Iva misinterprets this as the request, But the caller goes on to say, "Can you play Crazy for me?" In the music video's final scene, Iva Davies meets the mysterious caller, and he steps into a room filled with posters of Ice House, and his picture, Iva's, covering every inch of the walls. Glances around as Ice taking in the overwhelming worship, and he gets the hell out of there. Crazy was a multi-format hit here in America, climbing the number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. Also went to number 10 on the mainstream rock chart. Now, the second top 40 hit by Ice House was the enrapturing love song, the very cool title, Electric Blue.
If a boy had a chance
John Oates of the record-setting duo Daryl Hall and John Oates, or used to be, he co-wrote this song with Iva Davies. That was in '86. Now, Hall and Oates had taken a break from projects, and Daryl Hall released his second solo album, while Oates focused on producing and songwriting. They reunited in 1988 and released the album Oh Yeah. The collaboration began with Ice House when they were touring in America in about 1986. Davies was enjoying a drink at a hotel bar in New York City when Oates called. Eager to work together, John Oates flew back to Australia, and they wrote Electric Blue from there.
Are you gonna break his heart?
Afterward, Oates told Davies that if he didn't use it, he would record it when he regrouped with Daryl because he was convinced it was going to be a hit. John began constructing the track by creating the falsetto backing vocals, a move that surprised Iva, who was accustomed to adding, backing vocals as the final touch of the record. Here's what John Oates told me about this song in my interview with him.
So we decided to take a break. He was into windsurfing at the time. So we went to the beach. I was sitting there waiting. He was windsurfing. I was just sitting there looking around. And there was this very pretty girl came walking toward me. And I said, well, I better be staring at her eyes. And she had these blue eyes. And I went, electric blue.
And John Oates, of course, was right. Electric Blue was a smash. Not only was it Ice House's biggest hit in the U.S., peaking at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 and also number 10 on the mainstream rock chart, it was the band's biggest hit in Australia. It went all the way to number 1, and it scorched the ARIA Awards in Australia, winning Best Album and Most Performed Song. And I love this part of the song. So going back to the hard rock and glam metal scene, at number 3, we have another group formerly known as Mickey Rap that busted out from the streets of LA's Sunset Strip. Talking about Rat. Consisting of the core quintet of warrior rocker Stephen Pearcy on vocals, Bobby Blotzer on drums, Juan Crocher on bass, and the double-barrel guitar attack of Warren DeMartini and Robin Crosby. Warren DeMartini was a teenage prodigy when he was recruited to join the band. He was 18 and he actually dropped out of school to live the rock and roll lifestyle. Rat's breakthrough was in 1984 with their debut LP Out of the Cellar and their first single Round and Round. These guys were a lot bigger than their chart position, I'll tell you that much. Their first LP, a lot of people say, sold close to 6 million copies. They don't get the credit they deserve, but for a time they were right there with Def Leppard and Bon Jovi, and you just can't deny that first album. It's a classic, especially the album cover. I mean, when you think of 80s glam metal or hair metal, as many called it, and I'm already getting in trouble for saying that, do you think of comedy legend Milton Berle? I didn't think so. But it was his unforgettable appearance in the music video for Round and Round that helped make the New York Times list of the 15 essential hair metal videos. Milton's unexpected cameo in the video was orchestrated by Rat's manager Marshall Berle. He happened to be Milty's nephew. At the time, Milton, a comedic pioneer on American television, was in his 70s, and he wasn't widely recognized by the average teenager of the MTV generation. In one of the scenes, he's dressed as a woman, a tribute to his trailblazing days when he performed in drag. Milton appeared in the video free of charge. Round and Round spun to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 4 on the mainstream rock chart in '84. Rat got their second single of the '80s with Lay It Down from their second album, Invasion of Your Privacy. Lay It Down reached number 40 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 11 on the mainstream rock chart during the summer of 1985. This made it Rat's second and last top 40 hit. This is what Stephen Pearcy told me about it in an interview.
The way we went about writing was pretty interesting. It's like, what do you got? And people would throw their tape with their ideas into the pot. Literally. There's Robin's tape, there's our tape, there's his tape. And we go through them. We're going to work on this. You know, we were on the road so much. When Out of the Cellar broke, there was no going home. And we would actually write on the road.
All right, we're down to our final two. And you know, come to think of it, this top 5 two-hit sensations list, it isn't really in order. I haven't really thought that out, though there is a caveat. Who I have for my number one is who I consider to be the number one two-hit sensation of the 80s. So let me throw that in there. Coming in at number 2, we have a controversial choice. We've already mentioned him a little bit in the last week. It's an artist that some music historians believe broke hip-hop into the masses with his wild crossover hit in 1989. At number 2, I'm talking about the raspy rapper. He starred in Ace Ventura with Jim Carrey from South Central LA, Tone Loc. Anthony Terrell Smith, nicknamed Tone Loc, was the son of Margaret, who managed a retirement home, and James Smith, who passed away in 1972. Tony, or Tone for short, and his 3 older brothers were raised by their mother. Tone attended Hollywood Professional School, and as a teenager, he performed with the rap group AAA. He acquired his trademark raspiness from a vocal cord condition, vocal nodules. That's where that distinct voice came from. Wild Thing was Tone Loc's first single ever. It's from his album Looked After Dark. It was a double platinum phenomenon with major cultural influence. Now, I believe as many of you do that Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang in '79 was the song that truly broke the hip-hop genre into the mass appeal audience.
Bang, bang, the boogie to the boogie, say up, jump the boogie to the bang, bang, boogie, let's rock.
But Wild Thing turned hip-hop into a household sound. Besides its risque subject matter, Wild Thing was the center of further controversy with its sampling. We just covered this, like I said, in our video on Van Halen, but a quick recap. The song features an uncredited sample from Van Halen's Jamie's Crying. At the time, Van Halen's management requested a flat fee. It was around $5,000 from Tone Loc for this sample. The decision was made, of course, without talking to the band. Eddie, Alex, Michael, and David Lee Roth did not have any say in this. They were actually unaware until it became a big hit. A civil lawsuit was later settled out of court. Van Halen received about $180,000 as compensation. But they didn't really know about the song till they heard it on the radio. And Van Halen, they got just short of a couple $100,000. Tone raked in the millions, though, and the song is still going. Everybody loved doing the Wild Thing in 1989.
It's always hype. And with me and the crew leave a shindig, I'm with a girl who's just my type.
Single rocketed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It went to number 1 on the R&B and hip-hop chart, number 2 on the Hot Rap chart. It's been a pop culture staple ever since then. We talked about how it was used in Uncle Buck. And then in 1991, disgraced figure skater Tonya Harding used the music track A Wild Thing in one of her renditions. That's a blast from the past. Then Tone's second hit sneaked in before the end of the decade. It was another massive multi-format blockbuster with provocative lyrics that needs no introduction, really. We all know Funky Cold Medina.
Guy, why you so fly, except Funky Cold Medina?
The writing of Funky Cold Medina was credited to Michael Ross, Matt Dyke, and Marvin Young. Of course, Marvin Young, known by his stage name Young MC, famous for one of the other big crossover rap songs of that era, that exact time, Bust a Move, also in Uncle Buck.
So come on, Fatso, and just bust the move.
Public Enemy's Flava Flav used the phrase Cold Medina a whole year before Tone Loc's song was released. He did that on It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. He said that Cold Medina was one of his bold affirmations throughout the 80s. The phrase was later adopted by his label mates, the Beastie Boys, as a nickname for the cocktail known as a Fuzzy Navel. Flav reportedly also encouraged Tone Loc to incorporate the catchphrase into a song, and thus Cold Medina became Funky Cold Medina. The music track of Funky Cold Medina is basically one big sample, including a drum break from Funkadelic's Get Off Your Ass and Jam. Of course, the main guitar riff from Foreigner's Hot Blooded. Here's what Tone and Lou Gramm of Foreigner said about this.
Didn't like it because he put it out, didn't get permission from any of us, and wouldn't admit that it was a Foreigner track that he did his song to. Yeah, and it was real obvious. You strip away that stuff, and it's that song. It is that song, you know.
So Wild Thing, he was the one that created the Jamie's Crying, the Van Halen.
Well, I mean, the label did. Yeah, Mike Ross, Matt Dyke, yeah, those guys.
Funky Cold Medina, man. It's not like something I didn't come up with it. That's why you have Young MC, you know, because that's more of their style.
And this is at a time when I'm trying to create my stuff too. So it all kind of jumbles together in terms of the time, in terms of my mind, because it's not like I had a specific time and said, okay, I wrote Wild Thing and then had this expansive time and then I wrote Funky Cold Medina and had, it was just one of those things. It
kind of came together.
Yeah, it all kind of came together. In hindsight, it's a grand thing.
And I remember them coming to get me out of the club to come and do it. Well, Mike Ross, the owner of the record company, he's like, "Yo, I want you to come do this song." I was like, "I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing none of that stuff." You know what I'm saying? Wild Thing and that type of style. I didn't like, but I did it anyway. Had no idea it was going to cross over and do all the things that it did. And he's like, "Please, man, just come do Funky Cold." I enjoy doing those records though now. They're fun, you know.
Do you remember recording it? What was that like?
It was hot as hell, you know what I'm saying? I was in a closet, we used a 16 track. That's what Let's Do It means.
Let's do it.
They're like, "Yo, Tone, are you ready?" I'm like, "Let's do it." You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I am sweating my ass off in there. It was hot. That was like literally done in an little apartment.
Funky Cold Medina nearly equaled Wild Thing, peaking at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. The single also went to number 7 on the Hot Rap Songs chart and number 3 at the R&B and Hip Hop chart.
That's why I found you don't fool around with the Funky Cold Medina.
All right, it is time for us to reveal the number 1 spot, the top choice for our countdown of the top 5 two-hit wonders of the 80s. For this one, we go back down under, or at least close to it, for a band that was assembled after the breakup of another very successful band, Halen from New Zealand. Coming in at number 1, it's one of my favorites, Neil Finn and Crowded House. Man, I'm such a huge fan of Neil Finn. His body of work that began with Split Enz, it's amazing. As a child, Neil frequently performed at family gatherings with his older brother, Tim. As Neil recalled, they would sing all night. It was very much part of their upbringing. Neil idolized his big brother, and he aspired to follow in his footsteps, learning to play guitar and piano just like Tim did. While Tim was more publicly focused on his musical ambitions, winning 10 shillings in a school talent contest, shortly after he enrolled, Neil began playing Tim's guitar when his brother left for Sacred Heart College. It was a boarding school in Auckland. Known for his determined and ambitious nature, Neil Finn earned the nickname the Ant from his family. Now, following the breakup of Split Enz in 1984, Neil Finn established a new band called the Mullanes, named after the middle name and his mother's maiden name. The group included Split Enz drummer Paul Hester, guitarist Craig Hooper from The Reels, was also bassist Nick Seymour, who was the younger brother of Hunters and Collectors leader Mark Seymour, whom Finn had met on the final Split Enz tour. Now, just before they recorded their first album, Hooper left the band, and they decided to rename themselves Crowded House, inspired by the rental home they shared during recording sessions when they were in LA. Assembling Crowded House produced Neil's long-awaited breakthrough in America, but it was still an exhausting challenge. It took the 4th single from their debut album for Crowded House to score their first hit in the US with Don't Dream It's Over. A lot of people don't realize that. 4 singles it took.
There is freedom within. There is freedom.
I mean, Don't Dream It's Over, one of the greatest songs of all time, with its euphoric Hey Now chorus. It just missed the top spot. It climaxed at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Also went to number 11 on the mainstream rock chart in 1986.
Hey now. Don't dream it so.
You wrote it on your brother's piano.
Mm-hmm. I went. I was over at Tim's place because it's useful to have a place to go. Anyway, that's isolated. In order to provide more than just a simple guitar strum, they added a big backbeat, and so there's a you know, and that's what the demo was like. You know, when I had just that and a Matchbox snare drum.
There is freedom within.
The second and final top 40 hit for Crowded House was their follow-up to Don't Dream It's Over, the fifth single from their debut album. Great song in and of itself. There's actually a writing collaboration between Neil Finn and Crowded House keyboardist and producer Mitchell Froom called Something So Strong. Very McCartney-esque, very Beatles-esque, Something So Strong. It was the first song that Neil Finn wrote specifically for Crowded House. And during the recording of the group's self-titled album, Mitchell Froom and Neil, they reworked parts of the song, leading to Michael getting a co-writer credit. Demos of the song have been associated with split ends dating all the way back to 1984. Now, Something So Strong, it reached number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 10 on the mainstream rock chart, one better than Don't Dream It's Over. Crowded House very narrowly missed a third top 40 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 with Better Be Home Soon. That one peaked at number 42.
You'd better be home soon.
The track was from their 1988 album, Temple of Low Men. I mention that because, like Ice House, Crowded House had many other great tracks that didn't crack the top 40, but their repertoire includes just incredible songs. I mean, World Where You Live, Fall at Your Feet, one of the best songs of its time.
At your feet.
Weather Be With You.
Always take the weather with you everywhere you go.
Chocolate Cake is another great one. So many good ones.
Can I have another piece of chocolate cake?
Well, there you have it. That's our countdown of the top 5 two-hit wonders of the 80s. You know, we should do more of these. Should we do the 70s? Should we do the 60s? That was a lot of fun. Let me know. A lot of people might point out Mr. Mister and a few others, but Mr. Mister actually had a third hit. So maybe the 3-hit wonders. Anyway, let us know what your top 5 two-hit wonders of the 80s are. What do you think about this? What about my choices? What do you think about Crowded House? Let's have a great discussion about all of these. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We would love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.